Good morning and welcome to the 6th and final edition of the International Solidarity Series brought to you by WorldDenver and by the German American Chamber of Commerce. We're excited this morning to focus on education, educators and students around the world and how they are adapting to COVID-19. We've been bringing this series since March, focused on different industries and different areas, and I think we've been from the beginning excited about this conversation, particularly around education, because it touches so many different people and so many different aspects of life. And we have an incredible panel this morning from all corners of the globe and from all different types of education. My name is John Krieger. I'm the Executive Director of WorldDenver. WorldDenver is an organization that facilitates international exchange and global engagement in Denver. We, in a typical year, bring about 600 international visitors from around the world to share expertise and ideas. Obviously, this is not a typical year, but we've been attempting as best we can to continue this conversation and to keep global engagement up, even in the virtual space. Even when we're all isolating and social distance, we can still be connected. And I'm excited this morning. This program mirrors a little bit what our international exchange programs look like, getting together people from different countries, as well as someone from here in Denver to look at our commonalities, our similarities, and to learn from each other too, as we're adapting. I want to highlight especially Professor Guru Prakash, who came to Denver as part of the International Visitors Leadership Program, as well as Catalina, who was here as a student exchange. And I think we will also be joined with Ryan, who is going to be logging on. I think I actually see him popping up right now, who is also a student. And we're all part of our exchange programs at WorldDenver. The last thing I'll do before handing this off to William at the Chamber is first to say what a great partnership we've had with the Chamber of Commerce. It's been such a pleasure to work together on these events. And I think that WorldDenver, as well as the Chamber, are committed to continuing to keep these virtual events and the conversations going, even as the Solidarity Series winds down, including with an event that WorldDenver is putting on next week, a week from today, focused on US-Venezuela relations. That'll be on Thursday, the 28th, and you can register and hopefully will join us for that on the 28th. Should be a fascinating conversation. But I'm now going to hand it off to William at the German American Chamber. Before I do, just want to say thank you one more time to our panelists and to our participants from all over the world who are joining us this morning. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Thanks again.
All right. So hi, everybody. My name is William. I'm just getting my camera on. Sorry about that. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I know people are joining us from around the globe today. Yeah, I just want to echo actually John's statements in terms of welcoming everyone to today's session. We're very excited about the education panel and getting started. But before we do that, I do want to point out that while I am moderating today and will be asking questions of our panelists, I also invite all of you attendees to ask questions. There is a question button. And usually it's in the right-hand side of your screen on GoToWebinar where you can enter questions. I'll be reviewing those as they come in, and I can start fielding them to our panelists as well. So a quick introduction of myself. I am the Executive Director of the German American Chamber of Commerce Colorado chapter. As John mentioned, we're also very interested in international exchange, but primarily focused on business and trade between Colorado and Germany and in Europe to a certain extent. And so we're very excited to welcome all of today's panelists. I would love if we could start with some introductions. Maybe we can start with you, Guru, and then we'll go through the line.
Thank you so much, William, and it's truly an honor to be here and be a part of this engaging conversation on the theme of education and virtual learning. By way of introduction, I'm Guru Prakash, and I teach law as an assistant professor in Patna University. Patna is although it's a very ancient city, but presently it's the capital city of one of the most important provinces of the eastern part of India, Bihar. And apart from my assignment at the university, I am also associated with a think tank called India Foundation as a fellow, and I keep writing columns on issues of public policy, education, and so on. And it's an honor to be here, and I look forward to this engaging discussion. Thanks, William.
So much. Catalina, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah. I'm very excited and nervous for being here. I'm from Argentina and from a small city called Almafuerte. I am a university student. I am in my first year of systems engineering in the National Technological University of Córdoba. And well, as John said, I am a youth ambassador 2019. So I traveled to the US last year and visited Denver for 2 weeks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. Kelly, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sorry, I had to unmute my microphone. So I'm Kelly Jones-Wagey. I am a high school teacher in a suburb of Denver, Colorado, at Overland High School in the Cherry Creek School District. And I teach mostly U.S. history and government. I teach both American government and comparative government. And then I occasionally host some groups from WorldDenver that come through from the International Visitors Leadership Program. That come through on with education backgrounds. So
very cool, excellent. Sarah, could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Sarah Haslinger. I currently live in Austria, but I'm originally from Texas. I came over here as a Fulbright scholar to teach English and ended up staying to study and become an English as a foreign language and history teacher at the secondary level. So my students are around 11 or 12 years and up, roughly equivalent to middle school and high school.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sarah. Then our final panelist is Ryan. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, I'm Ryan Balkir. I'm a French high school student. I'm 17 years old. I study biology, physics, and chemistry. And I am also a former youth ambassadors. And I went in Denver and in America last year at around the Halloween period.
Fantastic. Okay, well, welcome everybody. As you guys can see, we have a broad spectrum here from professors to teachers to students of different levels. So we're really excited about discussing all points of view today in terms of how rapidly everything has changed within education. And maybe we can actually start there, maybe with you, Guru. It would be great to learn what has the past 2 months looked like for you in terms of everything that's going on.
Thank you so much, Will. And you know, one of the best things in this crisis is to share experiences, and sharing of experiences among the educators from across the world is going to be a brilliant experience. So as for me, I teach at the university to postgraduate level students, and as you are well aware that people have now adapted to the sort of technology because this is the need of hour, and we need desperate measures for desperate times. Although since the last couple of weeks, probably in the last 4-5 weeks, we are still getting used to the system of online learning and the platforms. But I would like to make a point about some of the important challenges which have in fact come across the platforms of online learning. So one of the key challenge, I think, is the level of internet penetration. Although the government of India have started a wonderful campaign, it's called Digital India Campaign, and the campaign envisages to have internet in each and every village of the country, and there are so many villages, and the population, as we all know, it's 1.3 billion as of now. But probably by 2025, the government of India envisions to have a smartphone or to have a right to internet to a substantial number of people of our country. But if I give you a statistic of today, we still roughly are able to reach only 35 to 40% of the population through internet. So internet penetration is one of the major challenges which I foresee, because as you know, many platforms of online learning, they require high speed broadband, and it is still a major challenge. So only the spirit and the idea is not going to help, but you need the supplementing right infrastructure as well, because unless you have the right infrastructure, you won't be able to reach the unreached people who are generally at the margins, people who are generally at the fringes, because my university is in a part of the rural part of the state, so students are from different socio-economic background. So you cannot expect each and every student to have a MacBook or a laptop or a desktop or even a smartphone for that matter. Although there are in the last couple of years, India has had a massive footprint in terms of smartphones and internet connection, but still a massive segment is still left who are untouched with this digital sort of connectivity. So that is one of the major challenges which we face. And as an educator, I always aim for a physical classroom. In the sense, physical gives you enough leg space and liberty for collaborative learning as well. And we are all aware of this Bandura's social learning theory. I'll briefly talk about this. Bandura's social learning theory illustrate that children learn when they observe and when they imitate others. So I was just thinking the other day that is it possible to create learning opportunities that enable Bandura's 4 principles of social learning, that is attention, retention, reproduction, and motivation. Can they be replicated in online classes or not? Fine, there are platforms for peer collaboration and peer assessment. Google Docs is there, Google Drive is there, Google Hangouts is there. There is sufficient number of softwares, but are they serving the purpose or not? That is one of the questions which we need to confront. Online learning, I deeply support of it, but since we are people from across the jurisdiction, people from across the globe, from different countries, I would love to hear your thoughts on how do we deal with these challenges going ahead. Yeah, William.
Absolutely. And I really want to dive into some of those topics in particular. But I'll hold off on them. I'm just making some notes right now. So before we dive deeper into those, in terms of things like internet connection and access to even just like a laptop, I would love to hear from maybe Kelly. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience in the past 2 months?
Yeah, sure. It's been a series of interesting events. We face a little bit of the same challenges as far as, internet connection and things like that. And you can hear a little bit, I think, sometimes in the background, as you hear my son in the background, because he's 6 and he just is finishing up kindergarten. And so my husband is working from home and I'm working from home and he is learning from home. And so what we found is that we have 2 adults in the household and 3 adults worth of things to do. And so, it's kind of one of the challenges that we've found is, and I think a lot of people have found, is that you have, people are saying, you can telework and you can do all of these things from home. But, I think people are finding that, they rely on schools for a lot more than just the education piece for kids. And I mean, that is obviously a huge part of it, but, we're finding a lot more of schools, do a lot more for our society than just the education piece. We rely on it for the economy to run, for parents to be able to work, for kids to be able to be fed. And for, the social piece and all of those other things. And so, there's so much more to education than just making sure that students get and kids get content. And so, my son is here and he's, right downstairs with my husband playing. And so, while I'm doing this. And so I think that, parents are really struggling with how do I balance all of these things and how do I teach my kid when I really don't know a lot of the stuff that they're really supposed to be learning. And so, as a teacher, I'm trying to figure out how do I get all of the parents and all of my students everything that they need to be able to learn the stuff that they're supposed to be learning when I'm not there. And, I'm used to adapting everything, as in the moment, when they're not getting it, how do I adapt to them to be able to get it? And I'm having to do that a week at a time instead of, in this exact moment. And that's really been a struggle. And at the same time, I'm trying to teach high school and kindergarten. And those are not the same thing in any way. And I'm an affiliate faculty member at a university here in Denver too. And so I'm actually teaching high school and college and kindergarten. They're definitely, none of those things are the same thing. And so those are all challenges that I'm trying to figure out and trying to find my, find my students. Some of my students became essential workers because they were working in jobs they were working at grocery stores, they were working in restaurants, and they became full-time workers when this all started, and their parents lost their jobs because their parents were not essential. And so then I had to go find them because they suddenly started working full-time and their parents weren't. And that was a challenge of, they suddenly stopped going to school because they just weren't available, or they started doing work in the middle of the night, and that's when they started turning things in. So there has been just a huge shift in everything, into how do I find them, because I can't see them every day anymore. And their siblings started staying home, and so they started helping their siblings with school, and there's just been a shift that I couldn't have imagined a couple of months ago.
I feel like I've been hearing a lot about adapting schedules, and even like as you mentioned, folks with children. Not only are you on Zoom and your partner's on Zoom, but your kid is on Zoom, and now your bandwidth is messed up, and now no one can access anything. It seems like there's all sorts of scheduling difficulties that have been happening for everybody. Sarah, could you give us any insight into what's going on in Austria schools?
Absolutely. So over here around March 10th is when things started to shut down. And as you said, things happened very, very quickly. Within about a week, all businesses and schools were shut down. However, children of essential workers are allowed to go to school here. I should say were allowed, because as of Monday, now schools have reopened. So during that 2-month period, the children of essential workers could go to school, where they were essentially, I want to say babysat, but there was someone there with them, not necessarily teaching them, but with them while they did their schoolwork, which was otherwise done digitally, remotely, while everyone else was at home using platforms like Teams or Moodle, various platforms. As of this past Monday, schools have reopened. And it's kind of on a shift basis. So half of the class goes back went back on Monday, while the others were at home doing their work. And on Tuesday, the other half came in. So we have a sense of normalcy coming back. However, things are still very, very different. Certain classes such as PE or music or anything considered an extracurricular is no longer an option for the rest of the year. This is at the elementary through high school level, and universities are still digital for the remainder of the year. And yeah, pretty much the same thing that everyone else has been saying. Issues with internet depending on the socioeconomic background of the student, sometimes very difficult home situations where friends of mine or colleagues of mine as well have been trying to reach out to the students, trying to make sure everyone has internet, provide access for them if possible, same with the laptop, making sure that they're okay at home, whether that is psychologically in their home situation, that they have the extra support they need for those students who would otherwise need it in class, or maybe now need it more so. So as Kelly had said, quite a shift and quite a challenge at this moment.
I would love to hear from our students to give us the opposite side of the spectrum and what it's been like as a student during all of this. Catalina, at the university level, and this is your first year in university, I believe you mentioned? Wow, what a year to start, right? Could you tell us a little bit about your experience so far?
Well, the school was canceled about March 16th, so I didn't have a chance to go a single class in my university. And it's been quite a struggle at the beginning because the teachers didn't know exactly how to give us the classes. So, or what platform to use, what virtual classroom did they want to use, and it was hard because we have a lot of information coming from a lot of different uh, places, and um, yeah, and we have to make uh, make a virtual wall like Padlet to try to organize all the information we had from different places, and it was like a team group with all the students. So yeah, because it was a really big mess at the beginning.
So I just one more quick question for you. In the United States, what's pretty typical for university students is they'll stay in university housing, so dormitories that are the operations come from the university itself. Is it similar for you, or are you in like an apartment or maybe with
No,
friends?
we are on our houses and we go to like it's a high school, but it's the same almost. We stay in our houses and we go to the university to have classes. And
Gotcha. Great. And then Ryan, you are at the high school level. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience so far?
Yeah, it has been challenging for high school students, mostly because in France they have cancelled all exam. So we all have our degree now, and to find motivation to work on online classes, it's very difficult because, as everyone said, social disparities and social backgrounds is a key wall to find motivation as a student because um, for myself, for example, I will study computer science next year, and I know that history or geography won't be my main subject next year, and it's difficult to continue to work on these subjects, even if I have already my degree. So I think motivation is the most important thing as a student now, because also when you are in a family with 5 or 6 siblings and internet is struggling to have all these classes at the same time, it's also difficult to find a motivation to try to fix it and to try to be consistent to follow these classes. And now that lockdown is over in France, it's harder because we can go out, we can meet our friends now, and to just stay home and walk home with our environment, which is probably for most students very uh, not very healthy to walk because we have whole bedrooms, no, or computers or video games very close to us. It's not the same environment as a class, so as a classroom. So motivation, I think it's the main issue for students.
And you're in your final year of high school, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's why I have my degree now.
right. So they're awarding the degrees. In the United States, there's a lot of chatter about things like graduation ceremonies. Um, are there ceremonies like that for you as well in France, and have they been canceled, or what's going on there? Is it just whatever?
I think except from private schools in France, we don't have really like celebrations for degrees. Maybe yeah, for private schools. So everything has been cancelled. And I think students don't even care because they just have their degree they know that they will go to university next year, and that's just the important thing for them.
Well, so I'd actually love to expand on that subject with the rest of the panel. Perhaps some of the teachers and professors could let us know about what has the end of the year looked like in terms of maybe Sarah with the Matura, or with graduation, or even things like the SAT and the ACT tests, the standardized testing. Could you guys give us any insight into what's happening there? Maybe we can start with the American perspective, actually. Kelly, could you give us some insight?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. At least here in Denver, all standardized tests got canceled this year. We made it to the ACT because we did ours in February. So the kids took the ACT in February. But other than that, the SAT was scheduled for April, and we were out of school we canceled school on March 13th. So March 13th, we were finished, and we didn't go back after that. So they didn't do any standardized tests. We did no state standardized tests. So that just was canceled. They are looking at possibly doing some this summer, where students that need it for scholarship reasons can go in and do standardized tests, but that was it. Students who did advanced placement courses, the College Board changed the advanced placement classes to do online exams. So they canceled the multiple choice tests and moved it to a couple of free response questions, and the students did online. So they signed up to take the test, did a couple of free response questions that were open note and open book, and that was all. So that they could take their tests that way, since they had taken the courses for the entire year. But that was all of the standardized tests that we had. As far as end of year celebrations, I teach a lot of seniors. So it was their last year of high school, and this was really, really difficult on them. Senior year of high school is really important for a lot of American high schoolers. There's a lot of celebration that goes with finishing up high school, and that usually comes around March and April is when those celebrations take place. There's prom, so there's the kind of dance that goes with it. So there's their senior prom, and there's all of they have a senior prank that they sometimes do, and there's graduation and all of the kind of celebrations that go along with that. And I think that my seniors especially, when we left, because it was right around spring break, they left and they were thinking like they got an extended spring break and they were going to have an extra week off. And that first couple weeks, I think they were okay. And when it started sinking in that we weren't coming back, they really, really struggled. And they lost their motivation for a long time. And there were a lot of them that I had to call and check and see how they were doing. And they just were not okay. Losing graduation really hurt for a lot of them. Because for some of them, they're not going on to university. And so this is the only graduation that they were going to have. And so, their parents had been looking forward to watching them, walk across a stage and get a diploma. For some of my students, they're the first ones in their family to graduate. And so they were the first ones to be able to do that. And their families had really been looking forward to seeing that. And they'd worked really hard to do that. And so they won't get a university graduation. And so it was pretty heartbreaking for a lot of them to lose that piece. And I know that our school district just released information that they are going to hold an in-person graduation in July for them. So they are going to do that. The students are going to be, and some essential faculty are going to be the only ones allowed to attend, it sounds like. And so they're going to live stream it, where the students will be, able to get their diplomas, and they'll be able to wear their cap and gown and do that. Now that may change as health orders change, but they will get to do that at the end of July. And so that students will get to, wear their cap and gown and do the graduation ceremony at the end of July. So people are trying to just kind of move heaven and earth to make sure that they get that ceremony piece that they didn't get, because actually their graduation was supposed to be tomorrow morning. And so, that piece was important. And so they're trying to also celebrate a lot of those pieces for them. So we're going to have kind of a thing on Tuesday for them, where when they come to actually pick up their diplomas on Tuesday, the faculty will be there and the kids, and even though we'll have to all wear masks and be in our cars and socially distance, the kind of gauntlet of stuff, so that when the kids come get their diplomas, they can be recognized for it.
Definitely be memorable.
It will be that. It will be that. So, we're trying to do everything that we can to celebrate them, but it has been very hard on them. So to lose those pieces.
Yeah. It's such a staple of American culture. I feel like every single American high school movie incorporates the dance and the graduation ceremony. It's a big piece of American culture. Guru, how about with you? Can you tell us about end of year testing and what that's looked like for your students?
I think it has been a great challenge for us, because as far as evaluation and examination is concerned, we actually rely upon a set of question papers, and then students come, they sort of analyze, and they are supposed to interpret it and write it on their own perspective. But this time we are definitely going to miss that entire process and the entire examination paraphernalia. But I think priorities are different, because more than ceremonies in India, students are eager for employment opportunities, and rightly so, because once you get a college degree, once you graduate, you are eligible for many of the jobs. And now with this crisis, there are a lot of companies who are initially planning to invest in China. And there are a lot of corporations who are already in China. They are planning to shift their base to India. So in the coming future, in the emerging future, there is going to be a great need of manpower. Manpower, human resources, not in the terms of qualified human resources, but in the terms of skilled manpower, people with a lot of skills as well. Like I made this point initially about the demographic dividend. So the entire education infrastructure, the government, the policymakers, the think tanks, they are putting a lot of investment into it. That how do we make our manpower, how do we make our human resource more quality oriented and more productive. So India is going to be at the center of the new world order, if I can say such a thing. Because if you look at many of the factors, like the economies are emerging, the population, I think more than 1/3 of the global population reside in this region, and it's thriving democracies as well. So India, I think the global power axis in that sense, which used to be on the Europe and the US side, it is going to decisively shift to the Indian Ocean, from Pacific Ocean to the Indian Ocean, because you see a lot of emerging economies and a lot of the established developed economies as well, in terms of Japan and Australia as well. So this is going to be an epicenter of the future, not only in terms of education, but also in terms of industry, in terms of the fifth generation of industrial revolution. So beyond examination, I think the government is sort of planning to make our youngsters job ready, because we are hoping that a lot of international companies, like there is this controversy I read about in the US, that there was a bill introduced in the US Senate about being cautious, or probably shifting the manufacturing companies, American manufacturing companies, out of China. So we are looking at this as an opportunity, and rightly so, because leadership, as we see, emerges in the times of crisis. And we are fortunately led by the Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, who, at the cost of political risk, announced the lockdown very early in this stage. And it saved us. It gave us a lot of time to prepare our hospital infrastructure, to prepare our health infrastructure, to get the number of beds, the ventilators, and so on. And thankfully, the mortality rates, the death rates have been very controlled. So the new imagination, the new vision is going to be very comprehensive and has to take into account all these factors: the role of India in the new world order, the role of the leadership, and the sort of demographic dividend who are going to decide the future of India and the region. Yeah, well.
Absolutely. Actually, with that, maybe we can go to Sarah. And I would love to hear from you about these sort of end of year tests as well. But also, I know that Austria has maybe a similar setup where not everyone goes to gymnasium and not everyone goes to university as well. And maybe you could touch on that a little bit as well in terms of what different paths are available for students.
Absolutely. So in Austria, you have various school options after elementary school, which is the US equivalent of about 4th grade. So when you're around 11, you decide where to go from there. If you go to the gymnasium, where you prepare for the university, or to, say, a special school where you learn a trade, or you specialize in a certain area and do an apprenticeship. So there are many different routes that students take, which is different than in the US, where you go to high school and some then go on to college. If you go to a certain type of school, that's sort of definitely your path. And those are the ones that have the end of year exams called the Matura that you mentioned earlier. So I'd like to touch on that for a minute. We don't really have the same sort of graduation here as you do in the States. You have what's called the Matura Ball, which is like a prom. That does not necessarily take place at the end of the school year. It kind of depends on the school. So some were able to have it depending on where they go to school. And you don't really have a ceremony where you walk across the stage. So they aren't. Can you still hear me okay? Okay, my headset just said something. Okay, sorry about that. Anyways, and many students then go on what's called a Matura-Reise, or a trip after graduating, and that's their big thing, which of course will be canceled. Many go to Croatia or other countries, which is not an option right now, with the borders being closed through June 15th and then limited border crossings after that. Right now, with the Matura, students would normally have normal classes through roughly the beginning of the semester, and then they have preparation courses where they only focus on the Matura and these exit exams, if you will. It's kind of the equivalent of a high school degree, high school diploma, and the SAT or ACT. So it is standardized. It is what gets you into college. It is your college entrance exam, if you will. And this is the focus right now. So these students are excited to no longer have these other classes to focus on. They only go to school to prepare for the exams, and then they have free time to an extent. And once the exams are over, they're done. The oral portion of the exam, there's an oral and written portion, was canceled. So instead of having the grade based on the oral and written portions, it is half written, which begins May 25th, and it will only be in 3 subjects. For most, it is German, a foreign language, sometimes English, and math. Or if you go to one of these technical schools, as I mentioned, where you have a different, not college geared school, I guess I put it that way, not a gymnasium, then maybe you have an engineering course or something specific to your school. But you only have 3 exams as opposed to others. So for me, there will not be a history exam taking place, which is one of the more optional ones, or one that you select. And these exams began preparation on May 4th. So these students went back to school a little bit early, but the rest of this time, they've been having to prepare by themselves. They had to partake in some of the other courses and then motivate themselves, touching back to what Kelly had said. So they don't get to have the fun, easygoing times with their friends aside from studying. They don't have the time focused on the exams in the classroom with their classmates to kind of end everything in their school period. And so I've heard a lot from students, just as Kelly said, not being motivated or trying to find the discipline to study on their own, which in part could be an advantage when they go to the university and have to do that for themselves as well, as far as writing term papers and things of that sort. But it's been quite a challenge for them finding the motivation and really making themselves study and prepare for that when they lose all of the benefits that go along with it. And the final thing I wanted to add on that is that these exams were set in place or excuse me, were started as sort of like a standardized version a while back to have the college entrance exams and the grading of them to be more objective. And right now, half of the grade for when they graduate is their class grade in that course. They say their English grade for the year, and the other half is the written exam that will take place in a few weeks. So you have a lot more, flexibility, I would say, possibly subjectivity on the teachers' end as far as what grades the students end up with. And this determines possibly what university they go to. If they wish to study medicine, they need to have the top grades. They might not, depending on who the teacher is or what the relationship to the teacher is. Unfortunately, that happens sometimes where people don't grade subjectively or objectively, excuse me. So I would say that's the big thing here as far as graduation and end of year.
Thank you. So we're in the final 15 minutes of today's call. I do want to remind our attendees that they can ask questions, and if you have those, to please submit them, and we'll try to make sure that we can get to them. Motivation seems to be a very big topic here. I would actually love to hear from the students. Maybe Catalina, could you tell us, again, you're a first-year student in university experiencing a lot of messiness. What has been motivating? What has been working well?
Well, motivation is a thing, obviously. But I think that it always depends on the professors and the classes, virtual classes they give, because if they are happy and they want to give classes and they are motivated, they transmit the same motivation to us, the students.
Can I ask you, Pelly mentioned that she is calling her students, which I believe probably, I mean, it's been a while since I've been in high school, but that wasn't normal for me. I'm wondering, how are teachers communicating with you? Are they also calling you, or is it all done through email?
We have virtual classes all week, like if in normal time, like it was a normal class, but all in Zoom. Yeah, they communicate through this method, and yeah, that's it. And they solve our questions and they explain the topics, and they are very warm.
Okay. Ryan, how about with you? What has been motivating? And also, I would love to hear how teachers have been communicating with you.
Yeah, I think from my perspective and my friend's perspective, we have been motivated because we know that we have time to do what we won't be able to do if there wasn't the lockdown. And also because we want to be as much prepared as we can for next year's at university, college, and I think also our parents are pushing up to work harder and every time, and that's also what all teachers do, because we have also every week's online classes, virtual classes. We have also emails that have been sent by our teachers, so they also try to motivate us to work even if we don't have tests at the end of the year, because they want us to be as well prepared as we can for next year's. So I think the perspective to have also other diplomas in next year's are our main motivation, but it's very hard for certain subjects that we know that we won't have next year's, but we try to do it as much as we can.
Absolutely. And now both of you, Catalina and Ryan, were involved in exchange programs prior to today. A question for the panel. This is a question from one of our attendees, actually Paul Miracle, the German honorary consul. Are you seeing fewer students applying for exchange programs at the university level as a result of the coronavirus? Are universities reluctant to continue programming for foreign students because so many of their classes are now online only? And I think that actually pertains to the high school level as well. I'm wondering if anyone would be able to speak to that.
I can volunteer.
Yeah, that'd be great.
No, I don't think so, because we have to learn to live with this virus. And I think viruses in the past, be it Spanish flu, be it the plague, they came and they went on, in the sense that they are not going to stay here and halt the civilization process. And as far as the exchange programs are concerned, they're extremely beneficial for a student or for young aspiring academics or the young leaders as well, like us, because it broadens your horizons and helps you make connection as well. In fact, this conversation is a part of a connection which I made in Denver. And when I was in Denver in the month of July of 2017, and I'm deeply grateful to Miss Norma Horner, who is a part of WorldDenver, and because of her, I'm a part of this conversation. So these relationships, these sort of engagements are very critical to one's personality development and one's broadening of perspective. So as far as the question of virus is concerned, I'm sure like people have learned, people will evolve, the viruses will evolve, and the virus will go away eventually. There are vaccines being developed. So it is not going to have a major impact, because we also learned that the Olympics are now rescheduled and will happen in the month of July 2021. So when a big event, so the idea is that the exchange of individuals and the exchange of information, the power of globalization won't stop, and our goodness as humanity, our goodness and as the mankind will definitely prevail over this virus, hopefully. So I'm optimistic in this regard. Well,
great. That's good to hear. Another question from the audience, from Dr. Prabhakar, and excuse my pronunciation if that's incorrect, but another question for the panel. What type of learning would be most suitable for this COVID period, and how can students be engaged, and what will be the evaluation criteria for award? So, and I think that actually is a great lead into another question that I had in terms of, there's obviously a lot of changes right now. What do you see being temporary, and what do you see as sticking around past the virus? If anyone would care to answer that question.
I have an answer, if I can.
Please.
I think in France we have a very old school system. It hasn't been changed since I think the French Revolution. So technology was a big thing here because teachers didn't want to use it. I don't know why, but they didn't just want to use it. And I think now that most of them try to manipulate them, I think it will be a thing that they will use more and more next years, because now they know how to use it for most of them, and I think they understood how powerful that could be, and how they can fix some issues that they have with certain students that weren't as engaged as they probably should in classes. And now that there is another tool to teach, I think they will probably use it more and more.
And yeah, as Guru mentioned, necessity is the mother of invention. Teachers had to turn on a dime with all of this and move all of their classes to this online learning environment. So it's really impressive. So all of you, thank you for doing everything that you're doing. We are in the final 5 minutes of this. The way that this Solidarity series has been going, we love ending on an optimistic note. So I'd love to hear from each of you in brief, if possible, to be cognizant of time. What are you optimistic about with everything that's been happening? Maybe it's changes, maybe it's the way you see things going or getting better. Would love to hear from you. Could we start with you, Guru?
Yeah, definitely will. Certainly, like one thing which is going to stay with us in this crisis is the impact and the relevance of online education, because the websites like Coursera and certain other websites, which has already been on internet for a couple of years now. So it's not difficult for a student sitting in Bihar, sitting in India, to have a course from a professor in Oxford or a professor in any of the Ivy Leagues. In fact, I myself have enrolled in a very interesting course on Coursera. It's called Moral Foundations of Politics. So education is now going to be accessible, every sort of information, and there are now debates on open source as well. So if you are producing any qualitative research, if you're producing any good article, it has to be available. That is my personal opinion, that it has to be available for the public at large. But at the end, I would still, it's my very strong belief that a lot would depend on the structure of digital sort of influence in countries. Because unless you have access of internet, unless you have this smartphone, you will actually be bereft of massive opportunities which might come your way. Like I said, there are many good courses, and the future of learning, I would say, the future of university will undergo a transformative shift, which was even during the pre-COVID days. But COVID will definitely sort of accelerate, in a sense, the future of learning, and will have a deep impact on it across the globe. Yes, Will.
It's some really interesting points, especially because if you look at the immediate moment, we have a lot of closed borders, but in fact, it could actually increase globalization and the global conversation. So it's a really interesting point. Catalina, could you give us some optimism?
Well, I think that every situation we experience is a experience of learning. So everything we are learning now to deal with technology and education, it can be used in the future for any problems that could search and that could appear. I think it might be useful in the future a lot.
Thank you. Kelly.
Yeah, I think for mine is the kind of deep appreciation of how important experience is, because it's really hard to have them right now. You know, everything has to be done and experienced virtually, and that's hard. And I think that at the end of this, even though it won't be the same, I think the appreciation for being able to experience things. You know, the number of my students that are talking about being able to go places where before they were a little nervous about going places that were not here, now they are talking about all the places that they want to go and all the things they want to experience they before were nervous about doing. And I think that makes me really happy that they're ready to go experience those things that before they were more nervous about. So I'm excited for that moment when they all get to go do that.
Absolutely, and that actually goes back to that question about exchange. I wonder if this will actually motivate more people to do so once we can, especially as we have these more global conversations as well. I mean, conversations like this one. Sarah, how about from you?
I was going to say something very similar to Kelly, actually. I think this has sort of made us reevaluate our priorities and get a new perspective on things, especially how important being social is, whether that is in the classroom, seeing students, watching them learn things, being able to discuss things with them in the moment, as opposed to via email or just reading their words that they've written in a text, for instance. and beyond that, beyond the classroom, just social interaction in general. And I can only hope that we will be more appreciative of that in the future. And as a positive as well, I think parents are more aware of what all goes on in schools and in education in general, and hopefully that sticks around as well.
I'm sorry, my mic was not on. Ryan, if you could, let us give us some optimism.
Yeah, I see in my city more and more people who are working together, who has been involved in community service, and I think that it's a thing that will stay in the future, because lots of people have realized how important voluntary was, and how powerful it could be in a community, and so I think it's a good thing.
Absolutely. John, I know you're on the line as well. I hope you don't mind me saying, but I feel like this is like the most optimistic way to go out with this series. Actually, like everything that everybody said was touching on very different perspectives of this, and I'm feeling motivated for the coming years. So I do want, we are at the end of the hour, so I do want to thank everybody for their time today. It has been an excellent discussion. Really enjoyed learning from all of you in terms of what's been going on and what's going to be coming in the future. So again, just want to do a quick thank you, and then also a quick plug for both WorldDenver and the GACC, both of which are membership organizations. So we are supported by our members who are not only members of the organizations, but also support events like this one. We host events in person too, and hopefully we can do that again soon. John mentioned at the start of the hour, they have a call coming up next week. The GACC does as well, so keep an eye out for an email on that, where we'll be talking, shifting topics entirely to Brexit and COVID, and where Germany stands amidst all of that. So again, thank you everyone so much for your time today. We were really excited to have you. Yeah, have a great day or evening ahead. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Namaste.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.